Want to know why some investors are moving into self-storage instead of traditional real estate? Joe Downs, CEO of the Belrose Group, joins us to discuss the opportunities hidden inside one of commercial real estate's most overlooked asset classes. From active ownership to passive investing, Joe shares what makes self-storage stand out. If you're interested in commercial real estate, investing, or finding opportunities others miss, this is an episode you'll want to watch. Join us live today at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast YouTube channel, as Joe Downs shares how investors are finding opportunities in one of commercial real estate's most overlooked asset classes. Want to know why some investors are moving into self-storage instead of traditional real estate? Joe Downs, CEO of the Belrose Group, joins us to discuss the opportunities.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Sorry we're a couple minutes late today. That's on me. I apologize. Was at a construction site and back here in the office trying to get things done. So happy to be with you today. And we have another very exciting show. We have Joe Downs who's with us today. And Joe has done some very, very interesting things in the self-storage space. And you've heard the saying, there's riches and niches. So, is he a guy that's actually been able to do that? Well, let's find out as we talk to Joe Downs up there in the greater Philadelphia area. And Joe, how you doing this morning? How's everything?
Joel, I'm great today, and I'm just looking forward to this show. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you as well. And exciting times. I didn't mean to start off with this, but LeBron James coming to Philadelphia. I'm an old New Yorker, so I'm a little nervous now. What's up with that?
Well,
trying to stack the deck.
I hope nobody in Philly hears this, but you see that behind me is that Villanova plaque on the wall with their championship. So
That's right.
I was kind of a Nova Knicks fan this season. I was very happy to see them win. Obviously, I'm a Sixers fan too.
Yeah.
LeBron coming to Philly. It'll be interesting. It's certainly exciting. There's a lot going on with Philly sports right now that's exciting and fun. Usually we have one team. We've got all four in contention at this point, which I don't think happened since 1980. Where four are actually relevant and competing. But there's one basketball. You want me to go into the NBA? There's one basketball. A lot of guys on that team can score. I don't know if LeBron came to be a distributor. Maybe it works, but I don't think he plays a lot of defense, and I think that's what they really needed. So we will see. They're going to sell tickets and merchandise and jersey, and it's going to be exciting. And there's, Philly Sports Talk Radio is going to add their element to it, which is going to be. My prediction is chaos. That's my prediction.
Okay. Well, totally off subject, but it does take a minute for a team to gel. So. Maybe in that gelling period, we can get another couple titles up there in New York. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
got to get a 2-year deal.
So we'll
You
see.
signed a 2-year deal. You might sneak another championship out of the Nova Knicks. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Can't wait another 30 years though. I'll tell you that. So anyway, well, good to have you here today. So Joe, who are you? Why are we listening to you this morning? You've got a very impressive background starting off in the financial services industry, but you've pivoted and you're doing something a little bit different now. How did this all come about?
Impressive is not the word I'd use to describe my background.
Okay.
Diverse. I hope someday I personally feel maybe I'm living in the gap and not the gain, but I feel it's diverse. I certainly wouldn't change it. I think, and I tell this to everybody all the time. I had this conversation with my daughter recently, who's off to college. I'm driving her down in a couple of days. It's everything you do, every decision you make, every mistake you make. So decision, good or bad, leads to mistakes or success. It molds who you are. So impressive. Hopefully, I'm building towards impressive. And we can look back on my background and say, well, look at all the things he did that was impressive. I don't know that they were impressive along the way. I think they are part of what molded me, the experiences I had, but mostly some of the failures I had. My background is a series of getting knocked down and getting back up. Maybe that's that Rocky attitude of, it's not how hard you get hit or knocked down. It's about getting back up. I'm Irish. I'm one of 12 kids. So I learned at a young age, you got to fend for yourself, work for yourself. I can say, looking back on my life, I was an entrepreneur from the get-go. I never would have put that label on it until more last couple of years. I guess I realized it, but
Mm-hmm.
I was shoveling driveways, making money as a 12-year-old and selling kindling, which is firewood. I was caddying in high school. I paid my way through to St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia, a private high school.
Mm-hmm.
We all had to pay our own way to college because there were so many kids. But so everything I have is earned, and I worked for, and for a long time, that was everything I didn't have was because it was earned. Frankly, I was broke for a long time. So, impressive. You're kind to use that word. I'd say it's a series of ups and downs, and just trials and tribulations, with successes along the way for sure, but plenty of failures. Some of which were in my control, some of which were not. So the ones out of my control became learning lessons, and that's just the attitude I take. Either winning or learning in life.
Gotcha. So that's good. That's a good foundation to let us know. And I think that's important because a lot of people, they look at the finished product and it's like, oh man, look at what he did. And it's like they just got out of bed and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they have this success, and it doesn't really happen that way. So walk us through this a little bit, because I get the part of being, a kid with the driveways, because growing up in New York, I shoveled snow and stuff like that and made money as well as a kid. But you got into the financial services field. Why did you do that? Why did you think that was important as a financial advisor?
Sounded like a good idea. I
Okay.
honestly, there was no plan. My buddy got a job at American Express Financial Advisors, and he said, and we both used to work for another company. It was a technology company, startup company right out of college, and they didn't. We were there for a year and a half. They didn't last. They kind of went under. He took a job at American Express Financial Advisors, which really, looking back, he was glorified insurance sales. And you were selling mutual funds and financial plans.
Right.
It looked glamorous, sounded good, sounded like I could be entrepreneurial actually, and build my own book of business. And
Hmm.
so, I was a business major. I certainly, what's funny? I didn't know the first thing about stocks or bonds when I took that job. I had studying for the Series 7 and all the tests you have to take is how I learned about the stock market. So
Wow.
there was no plan, Joel. There was. That's why when you use the word impressive, I'm like, it's not the word I'd use. I was just
Yeah.
a kid trying to find his way, right? In my 20s, and I always said, but I worked. So in college, I put myself through college. I was a DJ. I ran a DJing company. That's how I paid for college. After college, I DJed a little bit. Even when I had jobs, then I started bartending at the bars I was DJing. So I always had two, and at one point in my life, I had three jobs. But that's when I got into real estate. That comes later. But I was just always someone who was working because that's just what I knew.
Right.
Honestly, there was no plan to become a financial advisor. There was
Okay.
an opportunity, a door opened, I walked through it.
So just kind of fell into it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. And in the part as a bar owner, were you working there and decided to buy the business that you were working at, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, it was a Villanova college bar, is what it
Okay.
became, and let's just say the owners were not very good stewards of that, of managing the issues that come
Hmm.
with running a college bar, where you have underage kids and drunk kids, and urinating in streets and
Yeah.
screaming, outside of bars late at night, and so they got shut down. Is essentially what happened. The neighborhood shut them down, and so an opportunity came along to leave being a financial advisor, which I was not happy with doing anymore after 7 years and after 9/11,
Yeah.
and more than 9/11. It was just the stock market is the world's casino. Some people make money in it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be diverse and have money in it. I still do.
Hmm.
It's just you can't control it, and to think you can is ridiculous. And to think you can as a financial advisor and tell your clients, hey, don't worry about this, or we're going to do this because that's it, for most.
Hmm.
No, I find it hard to believe. I think they get very lucky, and then you listen to the talking heads on TV. Well, the market went down today, even though every single economic indicator was positive. Well,
Hmm.
it must have been. It was priced in. Well, what is that? How do you know it was priced in? If you're a consumer, you're trying to manage your own money, or even if you have a financial advisor, you're trying to manage your own money, and they're supposed to know and you're supposed to know that that's priced into the market, all the good news that you've been expecting and waiting for. It's just, you can't control it. The only way to make money there, I think, for the average person is the dollar cost average, which you do in your 401k naturally every week or month or however you get paid. And hopefully you time it right when it comes towards retirement. Or, and I think the mistake most people make is they when they're in their 30s, they're they're in growth funds and their 401ks, all that stuff. And then they get closer to their 60s and they're still in the same stuff. And that's where they're taking on too much risk for where they are in life. And they should start diversifying out of the market at that point. But I think that's how most people should be in the market, in my opinion, unless you're a pharmaceutical guru or something, you got some angle on an industry and you know something, sure. But other than that, for you guys like you and me, we don't do it every day. And even the people you trust to manage it for you really don't know either. It's just dollar cost average. And look at what you're doing, what I'm doing. There's a reason I'm in real estate. I couldn't wait to get out of the market and into real estate. You know why, Joel? The after 9/11, the markets were closed for the whole week. So you ended up I played golf every day. And one day I'm talking to my buddy and who was with me. We belonged to the same golf club. But I said, what are we doing? We can't control any of this. And I said, who's the wealthiest person you know and what do they do? And I don't mean Warren Buffett. I mean, if you call them, their phone, your name is in their phone. Like, that's how well you know them. And he looked at his phone, I looked at mine, and the top two wealthiest people we both know were in real estate. And I said, this is where I'm headed.
Gotcha. So is that where you decided to buy this bar, or did you actually own the bar? Or how did that all come about?
Yeah, the bar came along because they were starting the process of being shut down. The writing was on the wall. They knew they were getting shut down at a certain time. I was still a financial advisor, now at Prudential Securities. And they came to me and said, do you want to be the new face of this thing? Buy it. It had to be a legitimate transaction. Yeah. So I raised some money, put my money to work, bought it from them. They financed the acquisition of it, and we had to demo it. And I brought it back as like more of a pub versus a drinking hole, college drinking hole, if you will. And I thought that was going to be, I was going to be a business owner and a bar owner and own some real estate. Oh, I didn't own the real estate, but eventually I was going to own the real estate. And but I didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to run a bar, not a kitchen, not a restaurant. I was a fish out of water when it came to that. And that's that was my first big learning lesson in life. And I say this all the time, is you have to mind your kitchen. Now, what is your kitchen? Well, your kitchen's where your operation is. That's where the money's made and lost. And the money's made in the bar, at the bar, and lost in the kitchen. And you have to absolutely understand the operations of your business, which I'm just labeling as the kitchen, because that was my first big moment in life, right? That was my biggest failure to that point. I'd never been lower than that. Fortunately, I don't get depressed, but I'd never been lower than at that moment where I had to hand over the keys, right? Yeah. And lose everything. And I owed people money that I borrowed money from, and it was not a good feeling. But that was because I did not understand the operations of that business. And I look at that as one of my greatest, better than college experience. That cost me $100,000 when I was 30. I didn't have it to lose. And it was better than a college education.
Yeah. No, I can get that. Learning boots on the ground is always going to be better than theory in a classroom. So without a doubt,
I would have liked to have learned it differently from somebody else, but
it would have cost
not lost 100,000. But that's also what molds me back to my beginning. It's that is an experience that I have, I own, I know how it feels. I know what I've learned from it, and no one can take that away from me. Yeah. And that's helped make me who I am today and a lot of the decisions I make today.
All right. Good. So now you mentioned that you're in real estate. As you know, real estate is very, very diverse. So what aspect of real estate are you in, and why'd you pick that particular side of the business to be in?
Today I'm in self-storage and I'm absolutely loving it, but that is not where I got started. Okay. After the bar experiment experience, I had to take a job. So I took a job
/experience.
Yeah. Exactly. I had to I was out on my own, right?
Yeah.
Thank God I wasn't married with kids at the time. I was just a single me.
Yeah.
So I had to start making money again. So I took a job selling radio, selling advertising on talk radio in Philadelphia. Long story short, two clients came along. Both were in real estate in very different aspects. One was selling courses on how to, and teaching people how to buy, rehab, and flip or rent single family homes. So it was called Real Estate Riches. They did the old fashioned way. You advertise on the radio to get people to show up at a hotel. Now it's all webinars, right? But back then you had to do it in person. But
Right.
did that, took their course. They were one of my clients, I should say, took their course. Started, I was broke, so it started wholesaling properties. I think I got a partner, we bought and flipped a few, but it was peanuts. It was low dollars.
Yeah.
And then along the way came a developer, and they were advertising these high-end condos, like 55 plus age approved condos. And so it was conservative talk radio in Philadelphia, so we were the right audience for it. So they started advertising on the radio to come check out their demo unit, and the broker on the job, I became friendly with. In fact, I have a real estate license in Pennsylvania. He's still my broker today. It's where I hang my license. And he had a friend that needed a sales guy with a securities background who knew commercial real estate, because he had a company that was doing 1031 exchanges as syndications, so as securities. So I had two of the three. I could sell, and I had the securities license background. I didn't know commercial real estate. So I interviewed. He's like, we'll teach you the commercial real estate part. And by the way, I'm just selling it. I'm raising the money. I'm not sourcing it. I'm not doing the underwriting. I'm not modeling it. So my learning curve was a lot shallower than otherwise would be in that type of asset class, because we were buying office, multifamily. And then later I raised money for a different company for some hotels and distressed debt deals. But I was in the 1031 exchange business. So I got into it in the residential kind of single family flip business, and then pivoted to the other end, which was commercial real estate syndications. They were done as 1031 exchanges, but the equity was raised that way. So I was kind of like on both ends of it, and touching and getting dangerous enough to have a working knowledge of office and multifamily and single family, that type of stuff. And then along the way, got married, did some flips with my wife, had a single family rental for a while. We ventured into Airbnbs later, still own a couple and invested in some portfolios there. But storage didn't come around for another 10 years. Wow. And in between, so, why wasn't I in the syndication business anymore? Because the financial collapse of 2008. That our industry, our syndication, our 1031 exchange specifically, syndication business as an industry, not our company, went from, I think, like $4 billion in equity in, I want to say, like 2007 or 8 to $400 million in 2009. Like, it vanished overnight because no one could get loans to buy the properties we were buying, right? So we were the last loan out of Citigroup that year. And if we couldn't get a loan to buy a multifamily property, then is the guy buying a triplex getting one, right? Or small. So no, if real estate investors aren't getting loans to buy properties, no buyers, no sellers, no exchanger. So the writing was on the wall. And 2009, I think I got a mortgage license. I was back to reinventing. It was like, this time wasn't my fault. The industry went away from me. The first time, I didn't know how to run a restaurant. The second time, it wasn't my fault. But I was left reinventing, and now I'm married with kids. Thank God, my wife had a great job. So
let's do this, Joe, because we're actually right at time. We need to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast with Joe Downs. We'll see you in 20 seconds.
Step into the future with EcoCrypt, a platform unifying decentralized finance with real-world utility, where value flows freely. From gaming achievements to real-world assets, Everything can be tokenized, fractional, and accessible in one trusted ecosystem. For gamers, investors, and global communities, EcoCrypt is breaking down barriers and democratizing finance. Join the revolution. Visit ecocryptusa.com today. Step into the...
All right. Thank you for sticking with us here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We're here with Joe Downs, and we're talking about his journey in the riches and niches side of the commercial real estate space. And Joe, good to have you with us again. Let's drill down a little bit. We were talking about when we went to break about being the last loan that came out of Citigroup. I actually remember that period of time. There was a loan that there was a person getting a loan actually from Merrill Lynch that we had put together, and the money did not show up to the table from Merrill Lynch. And that was a wake-up call, right? And so I remember that vividly. It was quite the time. So let's fast forward a little bit. You went through this situation. We all know what the GFC was like, the Great Financial Crisis. Hurt a lot of people. But then things roughly 11, 12 started to kind of get back up off the ground again. How did you come up out of this, and what made self-storage the thing that you wanted to start looking at?
Well, so in between those years, 11, 12, I had already found myself in the distressed debt business. So we were buying distressed mortgage notes because that's what was in great supply, and we learned how to do it. We learned the business behind it. And we were doing really well with it. And then the CFPB was created. And the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, placed at a high level, this is what happened. They placed what I would call onerous restrictions on banks in terms of selling that debt. They were trying to stem the foreclosure crisis.
Right.
Albeit, I don't think they did it the right way, but that's what happened. So next thing you know, the banks stopped selling the debt. So now my new business, U.S. Mortgage Resolution, that I've been operating for 3-4 years now with a partner, which we still have today, and we're still in business. All of a sudden there's no business. We didn't buy debt from banks for 3 years because they weren't selling. So I had to reinvent again. Again, this is not my fault, but you got to,
Doesn't matter, right?
No, it's life.
It's life. Yeah.
So I'm picking myself back up again. What are we going to do now? And this is where self-storage enters the picture. So I got an email from a guy named Scott Myers, who described himself as the original self-storage educator, mentor, trainer, whatever. And it said, the subject line said, real estate without toilets, tenants, and trash, or something like that. So that'll get you to open it, right?
Yeah.
And then so I opened it and I started reading it, and there was a line in one of the paragraphs that said 80% of all self-storage facilities were owned by mom and pop investors. And that stopped me in my tracks because I was like, wait a second. I don't know anything about self-storage. Literally nothing. I've never rented a unit. By the way, as I sit here today, I've still never rented a unit, but I don't know anything about it. If you had asked me to describe what self-storage was, and this is roughly 2016, maybe, if you would ask me in 2016 to describe self-storage, I would have said something really dumb like, I don't know, it's those places you drive by with lots of garage doors and they're colorful, like orange or red or green, because I've never even been on a site. So I don't know anything about it, but I'm curious, and I'm a curious person by nature. So I keep reading. I'm like, this is interesting. And now what I know from my distressed debt days is that secondary market of debt, after I buy it from a bank and I sell it to somebody else, even my level where I'm buying it, it was still the wild, wild west. There's a lot more regulation in place today, but it was pretty crazy how little regulation what I know there is outside of the bank. So I was looking at this going, wait a second. This is what I know from mom and pop investors. Not very sophisticated. There's probably no conferences they meet at where they're swapping, best practices or masterminds, which is what this guy is selling here. Not only the education, but this community. And I'm just thinking to myself, if self-storage as an industry is anything like distressed debt, there is got to be opportunity here. So I bought his course, his home study course. I remember what it was cost, $1,500 or something. And I went through it page by page and I was blown away. and I'm now learning about self-storage, and I can't get enough. But the mistake I made was they offered, he had this traveling academy, and off once a quarter maybe, and they called me every time. You get a free seat at this thing. You just have to get here. And they would be in Indianapolis or Arizona or Orlando, or I was just like, I'm not. Flight, hotel, times are tough again. My other business isn't doing anything. I can't see my way into justifying this. And so I did nothing. And I probably lost maybe 2 years, year and a half to 2 years in self-storage by doing nothing. And then I got a phone call one day. They're coming to Philadelphia. And I said, well, I'm out of excuses.
Yeah, no excuse now. Yeah.
I went because all it cost me was 3 days of my time at that point. And I couldn't sleep the first night. I was blown away by everything else I was learning there.
Gotcha. So you wound up being part of this group, which is interesting. Doing your first deal, how did that kind of come together for you to really get going?
It took my partners and I. So I had one partner that I went into it with, and then we met another guy who became our third partner through this mastermind. We went through all the education courses. We were out doing. We were. Keep in mind, we all had other businesses. So my partner Tim down in Alexandria, Virginia, he's flipping houses. My partner Tom and I at the time, we have a distressed debt business. We're into hard money lending. We're partners in a title company. We're distracted. And we're spending about 25% of our time trying to find our first storage deal. And you can't do that. You have to, you can, it's just going to take a little while. Once we dedicated ourselves, I just started throwing all the distractions to the side and said, I'm going to do this. We're going to find our first deal. I didn't even find it. Partner Tim did at a conference, but once we dedicated ourselves, all of a sudden, magic started to happen, and we started to find deals and start to do underwriting. And we didn't buy every deal we found, of course, or we lost opportunities, or we didn't offer enough, or whatever. We weren't tremendously successful out of the gates, but we got the ball rolling. And once we got it rolling and started figuring some things out, we made mistakes along the way. Don't get me wrong, and we learned from them, but we were able to get to the point where, after a couple of years, looking back, we had bought 20 of these things, and we discovered a niche along the way, which is pro storage. Next thing you know, I'm being asked to speak at those academies that I first went to, where I learned it. Now I went from the seats to on stage. Then we were asked to take over all the education fulfillment. So it's just once we leaned in and we immersed ourselves, and we just became self-storage. Just 100. I still have my other company, but 95% of what I do is self-storage in some way, shape, or form. And then now we've I'm sorry to cut you off. And now we've launched go ahead. Launched our own platform. So we have an education platform, a community. Scott, I think, retired from the business. And I took my company with my partner and another employee who's kind of a partner now, and
this week on the Mornings with Joel,
from the mastermind, we formed the five of us formed a company, and we kind of took everything that we've learned about the business and we've taken it to the next level, and we've also steered it in a certain direction, away from into what I'll call blue ocean and out of the red ocean, where the institutions and the REITs play.
Gotcha. So what do you think is the biggest lesson learned through that whole deal from
this
your
week
perspective? Was it, well, you just tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we have people sitting here on the line, and they may say, you know what, that sounds interesting. I've heard of courses that I should buy and might thinking about buying. You hear all these kind of things. What's the biggest lesson that you think you learned from that?
Well, there's two lessons, and I'm embarrassed to admit one.
Okay.
Because the first lesson was internal in our company. We didn't mind our kitchen again. We brought in somebody who was a self-proclaimed expert as a manager and underwriter. And after too many deals, fortunately, self-storage, you can be fine. You can make mistakes and still be fine. And we're fine on a lot of these deals. I shouldn't say a lot. It's only a handful of deals, a few deals, where this person turned out to not to be everything they're cracked up to be. Now we've since overcome a lot of that. So that was one of the first.
Want to know why some investors are moving into self-storage instead of traditional real estate?
Yeah.
Joe Downs, CEO of the Belrose
It's not that I
Group, joins
didn't
us to
understand
discuss
the
the
kitchen this time.
opportunities hidden
just
inside
took
one
my
of
eye off
commercial real
because
estate's most
I went into growth
overlooked
mode and
asset
acquisition
classes.
mode,
From
raising
active
capital,
ownership
finding
to
deals.
passive investing,
And
Joe
I
shares
took
what
my
makes
eye off the
self-storage
kitchen.
stand
Knew the
out.
kitchen, but
If
we
you're
weren't.
interested in commercial
You
real
have to watch
estate,
this one closely
investing,
as well. It's
or
still a
finding
business.
opportunities
Commercial real
others
estate, but it's
miss,
a business.
this is an episode you'll want
And it's not
to
a
watch.
difficult business.
Join us
I don't
live
wanna- I don't wanna
today
make it
at
sound
12
difficult.
p.m.
It's not.
Eastern Daylight Time on the
But there are
Mornings
some
with Joel
nuances to it.
CRE
You have to be able to
podcast
trust
YouTube
and
channel.
know how
As
to
Joe
manage the
Downs
person managing your day-to-day operations on site.
Sure.
So that was a mistake. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I told you before we started, I am an open book. There's nothing you can't ask me. The second mistake, or is not a mistake on our end. I think it was a mistake the industry was making, because there's a few educators out there. There's a handful of them, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not sure how many. And what most of them are still doing is teaching the old model and selling the old model. And the old model was, we're gonna go to this 3-day event or whatever however they're selling it, however they get you to the place where they're going to sell you and pitch you. And then they're going to hit you with, I'm sure the sales technique is going to be great. They're going to show you all kinds of success stories and examples and all that. And they're probably all true. I don't want to say they aren't. But then they're going to hit you with the big price tag, the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 mentorship fee. I paid more than that. That's the old school. The business does not, the education business, the way people get into business today, when we live in the world of information is free, does not have to cost that anymore. The entire sales process is messed up. That's one of the things we changed with StorageMoguls.ai. Now we packaged all the information, some of which is AI supported. It's not an AI course. They're videos of, I deliver about 20% of the videos. The rest of my partners deliver different point. Basically, where we're subject matter experts or closer to it, we deliver those modules in this course. It's all videos. We have weekly calls. We have AI supported information and education. But all of that doesn't have to cost 40 grand, right? Here's the problem. The old school is you paid 40 grand, you got the education, and then if you went out and found a deal, then we were there to support you when you came back. But if you didn't find a deal, or if you just quit and gave up, you're out 40 grand. And that doesn't feel very good, does it? No, it does not. And the success rate, and it's not even the success rate, it's the follow-through rate. In all education sales, the follow-through rate is like 30%, right?
And that's people following through with the information that they bought?
And buying a deal. I don't care if it's single family flips or self-storage or buying RV parks. About 30% are successful in that first year. I don't know what the stats are beyond that, but about 30% apply themselves and are successful. So 70% of the people are out 40 grand. And that sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel good to say that.
Gotcha.
We flipped it. The information, the education doesn't cost anywhere near that. If you find a deal, that's where you need us, the people behind it. That's where because we're your bumper rails. When you find a self-storage, you want to join our community and our education platform and mentorship platform. It's buying self-storage with bumper rails, right? We're not going to let you put a ball in the gutter. If you want to jump the rail, that's on you. But one of the things we find hard to do, the hardest part of what we do with our students, is to talk them out of deals they fell in love with. We talk every student at least one point we're talking out of a deal. So some of them now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's cover some real deals because I want people to walk away and say I learned something, today. And let's talk about the Granite City storage deal. I understand that was a distressed asset. You turned it around. Walk us through that. What was the problems and how did you fix them?
No, that was an interesting one. That was, excuse me, my voice there.
Okay.
It was not a distressed asset. It
Okay.
was a stabilized asset in a market so Granite City is the name of the facility. It's just outside the town of Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is literally, and I'm not joking, Mayberry, right? That's literally where the show was filmed. You can still see the stores in the town. So you get this town, Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is, the TV show is Mayberry. And these 5 or so facilities in our market, because your self-storage market is not the town. It's like a 5-mile radius or a 10 to 15 minute drive time. Every storage facility was stabilized, but they were all well below where they should have been from a rate perspective. So all we did there was recognize that. We came in, we started to slowly increase the rates, and then the whole market went up around us. Now, that's a story of timing, because what happened with that facility was when I don't remember exactly the year we bought it, but I know it had to be 21 actually. It was probably a COVID purchase, but it was also a COVID sale. In other words, during COVID, the self-storage industry was deemed necessary. Occupancies went through the roof. With it went the rates, because what happened? People were working from home. You were clearing out bedrooms in your house, or stuff into the garage. Stuff in the garage goes into the self-storage unit. Whatever people were making space, so storage facilities filled up, and so our NOIs, which is our revenue less expenses, which is how we value these things with a cap rate.
Net operating income for a new
everyone's NOI went through the roof, right? So that's a great success story, but it's one of timing. Right. We were not great operators of that facility. We were very good stewards of it. We recognized an opportunity, and then COVID poured gasoline on that opportunity at an amazing time. And then an institution came along and said, we have to have this at a stupid number. And we said, well, who are we to argue with you? We sold it to them. So everyone did very well. I could tell you a story about a facility where we played defense and did well. That the Granite City, I don't know what the IRR on that was for investors.
Well, talk to us about that. Yeah, because what's the situation where the timing wasn't necessarily right, but you still had to provide a success story back to investors?
Yeah, so that clear example is in Lakeland, Florida.
Okay.
So we own a facility in Lakeland, Florida. It was on track to hit, I think our target was like an 18 IRR over 5 years for investors. That was roughly what we were targeting. We are absolutely on track for it. And then we started to look at what was happening in the market and realize we would be a victim of our own success if we stay in this thing. What was that? What is our own success? What I mean by that, we made a great purchase at the right time. So much so that the rest of the industry agreed with us. So the REITs started buying land there, and they had, I think there was about 300,000 square feet in the development pipeline in Lakeland, Florida, because Lakeland's south of like the villages. It's west of Orlando. Everything was closing in on Lakeland population wise. It was booming, right? So we made a great purchase. We were managing it well. We're doing very well with this thing. And then all of a sudden, everyone wants to be in Lakeland. So by the time these facilities would have opened, that 300,000 square feet would have hit the market for consumers to compete with us.
Yep.
Would have been right at our 5-year mark, or right around where we'd be making the decision, do we refinance this thing and keep it, or do we sell it? So right when we're making that decision, when we want our value to be highest, we would have been absolutely hit hard by oversupply in that market. So we said, whoa, and this is year 3. We're making this we're looking at this, because it takes about 2 years for them to build it, open the doors, and start filling up.
Sure.
So we said, we got to play defense on this thing and get out now. So we sold that at, I think the investors walked away with like a 14 IRR. But I have no idea what that would have looked like in 2 years. It could have been a 6 IRR, or maybe it would have hit 18. I don't know. But it just made sense for us that the writing was on the wall. It's time to get out of this thing. So we played defense and got out. So you can only play what the offense or the defense is giving you, right? Yeah. Use a football term there. It's that, and that's what we do with with storage in every market with every asset class is what is the market giving us, and it can change, and you have to monitor that. And so sometimes you're on offense, sometimes you're on defense.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's do this. We're at our second commercial break, so we'll take that for 20 seconds, and we'll be right here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast with Joe Downs.
The Impact Air 99. We asked real people, try the Impact Air 99.
Breathable, light, but protective.
Feels very comfortable wearing it. It looks cooler.
It's almost surprising how much air you can get in.
Engineered with 6 layers of nanoscreen technology that blocks over 99% of viruses and bacteria while allowing you to breathe freely and speak clearly.
My glasses are not fogging up.
I could wear this all day.
The Impact Air 99.
All right, we're back here on the Mornings with Joel series podcast with Joe Downs. Thank you so much for sticking in with us. And we're talking about self-storage. And Joe, we appreciate you giving us that background on what you've been doing. You've often said that now's the best time to buy self-storage. Obviously you don't want to sound like you're just saying that because you have a program that's associated with that. But what are some of the perils that people need to look at if they're looking to get into this business so that they don't get bit by the alligators? Is it market driven? Is it cycle driven per location? I mean, there's so many things to look at. Matter of fact, this might be a better way to phrase it. How do you evaluate a deal to decide whether it's a good one to go after or not? What are some of those variables, if you will?
You nailed it.
People need to know.
Okay. You actually just said it all, and I'm going to rearrange. I'm going to rearrange the words for you. Well, but I'm going to rearrange it for you. So, in fact, somebody asked me this question the other day. I said something like, "How frustrating or how many deals do you underwrite, and then you realize you don't want to be there, or the market's not a great market?" And I said, "None." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, because we don't underwrite a deal if it's in a market we don't want to be in. And that's exactly it. When I said earlier that the gurus were teaching it the old way, the wrong way, there was a time where you could just buy a self-storage facility and you made money in a couple of years. You didn't really have to know how to operate it. Those days are gone. It matters now. And frankly, I don't know how anyone underwrites a deal without first underwriting the market, because the market influences the assumptions you make in your underwriting performance for the deal. Yeah. What's the population doing?
Your whole lease up is going to be driven by that.
Everything is driven by it. So for me, the answer to that question is so simple: is we never have that problem. Did we used to? Yeah, we used to underwrite deals all the time, and then realize, oh wait, maybe this isn't a good market. And then we would try, because we did all this work, we would try to justify the market. And for us, that switch flipped 3-4 years ago. We said, we're doing this backwards. Yeah. First, identify the market. If the market doesn't support us being there for 5 years or longer, why are we wasting our time? Because we actually look at that. That was one of the early mistakes we made. We didn't underwrite markets. And so you have bad management in the bad market. That's really tough to overcome. Yeah. Really hard. A bad manager will do fine in a great market. A great manager is going to really struggle to do well in a bad market. So the market drives everything. And if you think I'm crazy with that statement, just think about all the mom and pops that still own these facilities. It's still around 70% are owned by mom and pops. They're doing great, and they're not maximizing the margins on these things, yet they're doing great. Right? They could be doing a lot better, and that's where the opportunity is, but they're doing just fine, and they're not very good managers if you think about it. And I'm not trying to beat them up. They all walk away from the settlement table with hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. They did fine. They did great over the years, I would argue. They did better than most people in the market. Yeah. Right? But that doesn't mean they maximize the margins and they maximize the value of their facility. So I'd like to say that's proof that a bad manager will do fine in a great market, but the reverse is not true. So the market drives everything. So what do you want in the market? What's the population doing? If it's going against you, if it's declining, how are you filling units? Right? It's just kind of common sense. So we want to be in growing markets. We want median household incomes to to indicate that they can afford the discretionary income it takes to pay $100 a month or whatever it is for a storage unit, right? Ideally, we don't want a lot of poverty, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the median household. We don't want a lot of crime necessarily nearby, because then you're dealing with headaches.
Yeah.
Right? What's the housing mix? You might think 100% rentals is great. Well, not really. You want some home ownership in there too, because that kind of dictates what kind of market you have there. And then, and so you want to balance, but you want homeowners, and do you have any businesses nearby? And that's actually what led to our niche, which is pro storage. But those are all the things you look at first from a market perspective, and then from there, what's the opportunity in that market? Is there an owner that's well below where he should be? Is there land to develop there because it's undersupplied? And by the way, I failed to mention that. What's the saturation of the market? That's kind of a big one. Is the market undersupplied or oversupplied? Right. So all of those factors is what we're looking at to determine the market. Then from there, I'm going to look at the actual deal.
Yeah, and apply the common sense necessary with it. Let's talk a little bit about pro storage. You mentioned that a couple times. What exactly is it? And just by the name, I kind of have an idea, but how does it differ from just regular industrial storage space?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly your definition of regular industrial space, but it probably doesn't differ much. It might depend on your definition, but here, long story short, we bought a storage facility in Wilmington, North Carolina that was not like any of the others. And we underwrote it like it was self-storage, and everything worked from an underwriting perspective. So we bought it. What made it different was the unit sizes and the customers. The unit sizes were 450 square feet, I think was the smallest, to 1,000 or 950 or somewhere in that range. By comparison for the listener, the most common unit size in self-storage, the 2-bedroom apartment, if you will, is the 10 by 10, which, if you can quick math, is 100 square feet, right? You got an 8-foot ceiling, typically an 8-foot ceiling, if we're talking about your traditional metal box there, 10 feet deep, 10 feet wide, right? 8-foot roll-up door. So that's your most common unit size. Maybe you could definitely have up to 250, 300 square feet. You start getting into the 300 square feet in self-storage, 300 to 400. Now you're in the 4-bedroom apartment territory, right? You've heard of them, but they're rare, right? So that's kind of where pro storage, or in this case, it wasn't even called that. We coined that term. It was just called contractor storage, and that tells you who the tenants were. The tenants in this facility were contractors. It was built by a plumber for himself, for his buddies, in a business park. And 80% of the tenants were, electricians, plumbers, trades folks. The other 20% were boats and RVs, and one or two guys with like the $1 million toy cars. So it was like their man cave, right? So that was the customer base. And unit sizes 450 to 1,000 square feet. And I just kept looking at it like, this isn't, if this is really interesting, it's always stabilized, it's full, it's the easiest of all of our facilities to manage. No one is ever late. Think about it. They're not storing crap. Is it fair to say that? They're storing stuff, business inventory, equipment, things worth tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars, even an RV, right? So you have a different tenant, a different motive for storage, and a different motive to pay. So we have zero delinquency. I don't know if anyone's ever been late there in the 3 years we've owned it. And that's not a declarative statement. I'm just saying I don't know. I'm pretty sure no one has. So we just kept looking at like, what is this thing? And then, long story short, I had lunch with a mentor of mine, and I said, hey, have you ever had he owned a lot of 20 some storage facilities, and he sold them. I said, do you ever have business contractors, business owners as clients? And he said, yeah, they're great. And he gave me the what you got to work, they're harder on your facility because they're in and out a couple times a day, whereas your average tenant is in and out 3-4 times a year. So your gates opening and closing a lot more. I said, okay, you can plan for that maintenance, no big deal. And he said a couple other things. And then he said, but you only ever lose them. They're great clients. They always pay on time. You only ever lose them when they outgrow you, and they would go to, small warehouses where they're they're paying $5-6 a foot and a lot more space, even though they don't need it. But
Right.
they're combining 3 units into one space now. And he said, but have you heard of last mile warehouse? And I said, no, but I heard of it, but I don't know what it is. He said, you should look into that because I think all of those contractors are about to get displaced.
And what was it called again?
Last mile warehouse.
Last mile warehouse. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I said, what? Wait, I'm paying the check. We had lunch. I'm like, what? So I started looking into it. And sure enough, I didn't realize what was coming, and we were all participating in it. The Amazons and the Walmarts of the world are gobbling up, renting and buying every warehouse of all shape and size everywhere. Why? Because they need to be able to deliver goods to our front door, and they need to do it quickly. Right? They used to be, they just delivered to our door. We didn't have to go to the store. Now we want it next day. And next year,
it's the same day.
Next year, we're going to demand same day. You know what the stats on that are? Right now, I don't know where it's going to, these stats are a little old, but there was a time in the last 6 to 9 months where I read Walmart and Amazon expect to lose 25% of sales if they can't deliver to you by tomorrow.
Wow.
And then a year from now, so we're coming up on that year from now.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm starting to see more and more things same day delivery. They expect at some point in the next 12 months. I'll open it up to that. They expect to lose 25% of sales if they can't get it to us same day. To do that, they have to anticipate what we want for sure. That's the algorithms, right? But they also have to have it within 30 minutes of our house, right? And that's all the warehouse space. So all of these contractors and small businesses that could afford to pay with the old rates, the $5, $10, $12 a foot annualized for these, all those rates have doubled now. So I'm looking at what we got in Wilmington. I'm also looking at the boat and RV problem in the U.S., which is there's 600,000 boats and RVs delivered to consumers every year and only 30,000 new parking spots for them. And I'm looking at what's coming from a paradigm shift happening and going, I think we need to start building this facility that we have here in Wilmington, North Carolina. We need to start building these in markets that look like Wilmington, North Carolina at the very least, because we know what that market looks like. And it needed a different name because I couldn't call it contractor storage when I got boats and RVs in it. And I heard big stuff storage and large format storage, and none of it was sexy. And I said, you know what? It's professional storage. Well, let's call it pro storage. And I went to trademark it, Joel, and it's already trademarked by the cloud storage guys. So I was like, you know what? We're going to call it pro storage, and we'll brand, because that was going to be our brand. We came up with a different brand. The brand is Store Pro. It's STORPRO. So that's our Store Pro is our brand for pro storage. And sure enough, I love seeing this. There's now conferences that people are having, and they're calling them pro storage facilities. So it's pretty cool to see. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to that. And those last couple of minutes there were pretty informative from that standpoint. Appreciate you sharing that. I was thinking even myself, one of the local Walmarts not far from where I live, I was wondering why all these cages were in the parking lot. And I'm like, what is this? Is it like the fair coming, or, the circus, or, what is this? And what it was is it was being set up as a drone staging area for drone delivery.
Yep.
And they're doing that right now. I was like, wow, that's really incredible. So
it's wild what's coming, especially with AI and how they can fly these drones now. It's wild what's coming. We're gonna be looking up at the sky soon, and it's just gonna be traffic over our heads.
I know. It's gonna be crazy. Wow. Hope nobody's delivering tile and having that delivered by drone, right? So don't fall on your head. But no, that's really, really good information, and it's a good pivot to the thought process of what's coming next. The idea of you got your traditional self-storage, but ironically enough, I've got clients that, actually we did a deal in state of Washington, which was a storage facility for, as you mentioned, RVs, sexy cars, man caves, all that kind of thing. But this happened to be in an area that was more of a resort town where people go out to the lakes up in the mountains and hang out. So there's a demand for it out there. And
for sure.
Really, really interesting.
I could do another 30 minutes on that alone. But you asked the question earlier, why is now a good time? And I don't think I ever answered. That Forbes put out an article 6 months ago that said in the next 10 years, 2.5 million cash flowing businesses are going to change hands. And we see that all the time in self-storage. There's of those 2.5 million, about 30,000 of them are self-storage facilities that are owned by mom and pops.
Wow.
The same reason those businesses will change hands is because the age of the owner. They're in their 70s and 80s and they're retiring.
Yeah.
And so why is now a great time? Because there's 25, 30,000, 20 to 30,000. I'll open the range up wider. Self-storage facilities that are owned by mom and pops that the institutions will never own because they're too small for them to manage. They will change hands over the next 10 years. So if you want to be part of that opportunity, that's one of the reasons. Another reason would be we are commercial real estate, but we are a business, and that means we can use the SBA. So our students are most of the time are buying their first self-storage facility for themselves with their own money, and the acquisition price is between $400,000 and $2 million for the most part, and they're using 90% financing from the SBA to do it. So it's just there's tremendous opportunity for folks to get into the business. The learning curve is not hard at all. It's just new. It's just new information. Guy like me can learn this business. Anyone can learn this business.
Anybody could do it. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That's a good point to end on. We've got about a minute left. Very good, informative information there. Appreciate you sharing that, Joe. What would you want to leave our audience with? Or did you just give us that nugget and we're going to leave with that? But I'll let you have the last word.
I mean, certainly that's strong to finish with, but I would encourage people, look, the folks that we see come through our community that take our course and we educate and become part of our community members, they're husband and wife teams, they're people looking to leave their 9-to-5 job. This is not a microwave business, by the way. You're not leaving your job overnight. One facility won't do it, but you can do this on the side. Or they're frustrated landlords that are tired of the single family rentals, or they're, just high income earners that are looking for cash flowing, tax efficient real estate. That's who we see coming through our community. This is not a difficult business. The opportunities are out there. It's just going out and finding them. And at storagemoguls.ai, if I may promote it, we have built the platform, the community for folks to just walk through it step by step at their own pace.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds really good. Well, we really appreciate that. Joe, I do have another question for you, but we're out of time for today's show, so stay on the line. And I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank all you, my guests, for being here as well and listening to the Mornings with Joel series podcast. We'll have another very exciting show next week, and we hope to have you with us as well. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, and thank you for being here with us. Talk to you soon. Have a good day.
Are you ready to level up in commercial real estate? Join us on Mornings with Joel CRE podcast, where we bring you exclusive interviews with top deal makers, investors, and industry leaders. Sponsors reach a high-value audience of real estate professionals. Guests share your expertise and grow your influence. Don't miss out. Book your spot today. Are you ready to level up in commercial